Freedom-loving people, welcome to another episode of Front Page. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. The digital totalitarianism of tech giants has been a hot topic these days, and the outrage has not subsided. The censorship of speech is really a failed decision for those companies to lose not only their profits, but also their future. Social media giants Facebook and Twitter have collectively seen $51.2 billion in combined market value wiped out over the last two trading sessions since they banned President Donald Trump from their platforms. Many governments are considering appropriate policies to limit the censorship power of social platforms and to protect the rights of the users. Secretary Pompeo recently commented that the Trump administration has successfully built a tremendous coalition against the Chinese Communist Party and that he was proud of the accomplishments. He said, "I think history will remember us very well for these things when the books are written." Okay, let's get into it. Former U.S. Speaker Newt Gingrich said in an article in the Washington Times on Wednesday, January 13th, that big tech is a big with its bogus censorship in our society today. The internet giants' suppression of conservative free speech could have only motivated the rise of alternative conservative social media platforms, but they can't put 74 million Americans into a memory hole. Even the American Civil Liberties Union, normally an opponent of conservatives, felt moved to have its senior legislative counsel, Kate Ruane, issue a statement that big tech, using its power to remove political speech, is a concern for all Americans, saying, "We understand the desire to permanently suspend him now, but it should concern everyone when companies like Facebook and Twitter wield the unchecked power to remove people from platforms that have become indispensable for the speech of billions, especially when political realities make those decisions easier. This process of squeezing out people of the public square is inherently dangerous. As President Harry Truman warned, once a government is committed to the principle of silencing the voice of opposition, it has only one way to go, and that is down the path of increasingly repressive measures until it becomes a source of terror to all its citizens and creates a country where everyone lives in fear." He emphasized, fortunately, there is a reaction built up which will defeat the left's grasp for power over words, speech, and discourse. Gingrich suggested 3 ways to tackle the tech giants' control of speech. First, the internet giants are at risk of being sued for acting as indirect agents of government power. Some argue that the protection of Section 230 also makes them indirect agents of the government. Cutting off free speech is a violation of the First Amendment guarantee of liberties, and therefore the companies might be subject to fines and penalties for violating the constitutional right of their customers. Second, the nature of Section 230 may be profoundly changed. Section 230 could be modified to either make them common carriers with no right to monitor or block the participants' ideas, or it could be modified to make them liable to the same legal exposure as newspapers and magazines, in which case they could be sued. Third, which is Gingrich's most favored approach, conservatives should simply create alternative communication systems to provide access for everyone who disagrees with the left. He concluded by saying that competition is the best way to defeat efforts at monopoly and domination. I am convinced we Americans will reject domination by oligarchs and insist on our right to be free. We will not be thrown into the memory hole by a handful of rich liberals. Now, the world is entering a stage where new competition is rising. On January 13th, Polish Prime Minister denounced the big tech giants for stifling speech on social media platforms. He announced that Poland will introduce a law to protect freedom of speech online. He said that the internet, over time, has come to be dominated by international corporations that treat people's online activity as a source of revenue and a tool to increase their power. Moreover, big tech has also introduced their own standards of political correctness to attack those who oppose them. Discussion consists in the exchange of views, not in silencing people. We do not have to agree with what our opponents write, but we cannot forbid anyone from expressing views that do not contravene the law. The Prime Minister also announced that Poland will adopt appropriate national laws to regulate the operation of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other similar platforms. He recalled that during the 45 years of communist rule, people were controlled into what to think, say, or write. He said, "That is why we are so concerned with any attempt to limit freedom." He emphasized, everything which is not forbidden is allowed. Also, on the internet, there is no tolerance for censorship, nor can there ever be. Just a reminder for everyone, due to the increasing scrutiny and restrictions, please subscribe to our newsletter by clicking the link down below. If anything happens, we can keep in touch and let you know where we have moved to. After Parler was booted by Amazon, a large number of conservatives moved to Gab.
Welcome to the future of press wires. EIN Press Wire, everyone's internet news press wire, a leading wire service for news creators. Since 1995, we've been aggregating news from thousands of sources. Our service is designed for...
Telegram is another popular choice for many people, so that it jumped to the second place on the recent US download chart, surpassing YouTube and Instagram. According to market research firm Sensor Tower, Telegram was downloaded more than 545,000 times in the US from January 6th to January 10th, almost 3 times as many as last week. Telegram was developed by Russian entrepreneur Pavel Durov, and since its launch in 2013, it has become popular among people in the former Soviet Union and Iran due to its high level of confidentiality and security. When the anti-extradition law amendment bill movement broke out in Hong Kong, many people in Hong Kong also used Telegram to communicate and transmit information. Currently, Telegram has over 500 million users worldwide. The number of users is expected to grow to more than 1 billion. Everyone agrees that President Trump is the president with the strongest stance against communism since President Reagan. In the last few days of his first term, President Trump increased the sanctions on the CCP. On January 13th, President Trump issued an executive order addressing the threat from securities investments that finance communist Chinese military companies. It says, effective 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on November 11th, 2021, possession of any such securities by a United States person is prohibited. The new executive order would further strengthen the previous one issued last November, expanding the scale of Executive Order 13959, while further clarifying the authority of the Department of Treasury and the Department of Defense to implement the executive order. Under the amendment, possession of any security investment that finances Communist China's military companies that are on the list by any American is prohibited. The Secretary of Defense, in consultation with the Secretary of the Treasury, can publicly list an entity as a CCP military company if they meet the criteria as stipulated in the supporting legislation. According to Executive Order 13959, the Chinese Communist Party's military companies raise capital by selling securities to United States investors that trade on public exchanges, both here and abroad, lobbying United States index providers and funds to include these securities in market offerings and engaging in other acts to ensure access to United States capital. At the same time, the Chinese communist regime is increasingly exploiting United States capital to resource and to enable the development and modernization of its military, intelligence, and other security apparatuses, which continue to allow the CCP to directly threaten the United States homeland and United States forces overseas, including by developing and deploying weapons of mass destruction, advanced conventional weapons, and malicious cyber-enabled actions against the United States and its people. Accordingly, the U.S. government prohibits U.S. investors from publicly purchasing securities, derivative securities, or securities to finance such entities or companies affiliated with the Chinese Communist military. President Trump also added China's largest offshore oil and gas producer, China National Offshore Oil Corporation, or the CNOOC, to the entity list. The U.S. Department of Commerce announced this news on January 14th. It said that CNOOC helps the Chinese Communist regime intimidate its neighbors in the South China Sea. In the statement, the Department of Commerce says, despite protests from the United States and other countries, China has been rapidly building the artificial islands since 2013, enabling the CCP's militarization of disputed outposts in the South China Sea to undermine the sovereign rights of the U.S. partners in the region. CNOOC has repeatedly harassed and threatened offshore oil and gas exploration and extraction in the South China Sea with the goal of driving up the political risk for interested foreign partners, including Vietnam. Additional license requirements apply to exports, re-exports, and in-country transfers of items subject to the EAR to listed entities, and the availability of most license exceptions is limited. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is proud of the achievements that the Trump administration accomplished in the past 4 years. Breitbart News has learned exclusively that Pompeo spoke to outgoing administration officials during a meeting with top Republican lawmakers and senior congressional staffers on January 8th. He said, the Trump administration has built an enormous coalition in the world against the Chinese Communist Party. In his speech, Pompeo said, I am proud of what we've accomplished, not just in the national security, foreign policy space, which I've worked with, but the things that we've done with families, the pro-life work that we have done. These are things that will truly be historic. I think history will remember us well for these things when the books are written. The remarks were made at the end of a day-long private meeting with the Republican Study Committee, the largest conservative caucus in the House of Representatives. He noted that the Trump administration works successfully to build an enormous coalition with India, Australia, Japan, South Korea, and some parts of European nations in order to counter China. He said 120 international telecommunications companies have now rejected any Chinese technology in their system. He added, we not only got it right, and frankly, I think there is some bipartisan basis, I hope, that we can continue to get this right. Pompeo also discussed the Trump administration's foreign policy successes, such as acknowledging Israeli settlements in the Golan Heights and Jerusalem as Israel's capital, resolving differences between the Gulf states and Qatar, and friendly cooperation with Brazil. Also, the U.S. convinced Mexico to acknowledge that banning illegal immigration from coming to the United States would be beneficial to Mexico as well. Pompeo said, it means this deep recognition that our sole responsibility is to protect the American people. When we do that, I am very confident we will increase security for people all around the world. We will raise others up as well. But our mission set every day is to say, how do we make sure that everything we do is to secure freedom for America? Last, we have a brief epidemic update. The French Prime Minister announced at a press conference on Thursday that starting from Saturday, France will implement a curfew from 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. every day throughout the country for at least 15 days. On Thursday, January 14th, the number of deaths recorded in Germany within 24 hours reached 1,244, the highest so far since the pandemic. And Italy will extend a state of emergency imposed to curb the spread of the CCP virus until the end of April, as infections currently show no sign of dwindling, the health minister said on January 13th. The UK issued a sudden travel ban to people who have traveled from or through the South American countries in the last 10 days. Former Bolivian President Evo Morales revealed on Wednesday, January 13th, that he tested positive for the CCP virus. Bolivia is also suffering from a second wave of infections. Let's break through this wave together. Okay, this is our show for today. Please remember to subscribe to our newsletter by clicking the link below. If anything happens, we can still keep in contact. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video with at least one of your friends, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.